Hi everyone! Welcome back, or welcome if you are new to my channel. My name is Megan and I am a library assistant. I'm not sure what my voice is doing. I do have some water here. So my apologies if I sound a little bit funky. My throat's been a little bit sore today, but we'll get through it. I wanted to start doing a quarterly kind of reading wrap up because I don't read I find I don't read a huge amount like I used to, and doing monthly wrap ups, I feel like for me it just puts on a lot of unnecessary pressure. There are people that read 8, 10, 12, 15 books a month, and all the power to them. I just can't do that anymore. I have lots of other interests. I have a partner. I have a little bit of a social life. I've got my cats. Plus a full-time job. I should probably mention that. But I can't do that. So what I was thinking of doing is a quarterly reading wrap up. And I thought I would also in these videos kind of break down some of the stats, the reading stats. I do Storygraph now instead of Goodreads. I still have my Goodreads account if you are interested in looking at that one, but I don't update it anymore. I do update my Storygraph, and since using it, I've been really interested in the stats that they collect and show you, and I just find that really fun. So I thought that's what we would kind of look at just for the last 3 months. How many books I've read, what I've read, different genres, pages. Sorry, Jazz is pawing at the back door. I'm assuming there's a chipmunk or a squirrel or something back there. Anyway, so let's get into it. I'm going to break down each month what I read, ratings that I did, and then I'm going to do all the stats for the previous quarter. Okay, so for January and February, I'm not going to go too in depth into what I read, ratings, all of that, because I did cover them in a recent reads video. So I'm just going to kind of go over them again, what ratings I gave them, and then we'll go into March. So if you're interested in seeing more in-depth reviews of those, feel free to check that video out, or even my Instagram. I do kind of mini reviews whenever I finish a book there. So the first book that I read was actually an audiobook, and this was When Things Are Set Right by Jordan St. James. I gave this book a 2 stars. Wasn't my favorite. Not a great way to start off the year. The next book that I read was a reread, and that was Garden Spells by Sarah Addison Allen, and I gave that book a 4 stars. It's a very cute cottagecore, very summery book, and it has that kind of magical realism, practical magic, slice of life kind of vibe to it. So if that's what you're interested in, I highly recommend this book. The third book that I read was The Gentleman's Gambit by Evie Dunmore, and this is the 4th book in the League of Extraordinary Women series. I go into detail in that video about why I started this series with the last book. So if you're curious why, just watch that video and I'll explain everything. But yeah, so I did read that book. The next book was Long Shadow by Olivia Atwater, and this is the 3rd book in the Regency Fairy Tales trilogy. I read the first book, Half a Soul, last January and absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite series now, and I will recommend it to anyone. That magic kind of, this one has more of a spooky vibe. There's ghosts, Regency era romance, all that, and this was a 4 star. Can't remember if I said that. The next book for January, and I believe this was the last book that I read in January, and it is Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore, and this is the 3rd book in the League of Extraordinary Women. This was a 3 star. I did an audiobook for this one, and I liked it basically until the end. It docked a star for me, and just something happened that I was like, this should have, in my opinion, it could have been done differently or could have been excluded altogether, and it would have made the book better in my mind. So in total, that was 5 books for January. So moving on to February. So it started with Raiders of the Lost Heart by Joe Segura. This was highly anticipated. Everyone's been talking about it. I thought it looked really cute. It sounded really cute. It was a dud. I gave this one a 2-star because I was just so disappointed. It just fell really flat for me. So not a read, and I probably won't read anything else in that series if it's going to be a series. So the next book was The Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb, the second book in the Farseer trilogy. This book I gave a 4-star. It had really nice fantasy elements, that kind of medieval vibe. So I did really enjoy it, and I'm still reading the 3rd book. It's taking me a while to get through that one, so I'm hoping to finish the trilogy, but I will say it's taking me a little bit for that. And that was actually the last book that I read for February, so I only read 3 books. Oh, I totally skipped over 10,000 Stitches by Olivia Atwater. I don't know how I did that, which is the 2nd book in the Regency Fairy Tales trilogy. I gave this book a 5-star rating. This is my first 5-star of the year, and it was so good. I absolutely loved it. It was so sweet. The romance, the magic, the characters. Loved it all. Loved it all. Definitely a reread, and I'm planning on buying the rest of the series. I have half a soul, but I'm going to buy the rest of this trilogy and probably any future books by her because chef's kiss. Okay, so I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I know I've been talking quickly, but now I can kind of go a little bit more in depth with my March reads. So the first book that I read in March was Sunshine Nails by Mai Nguyen. And this is a book about a Vietnamese family. The parents are immigrants, and then their children were born here. So they've got first-generation Canadians, the immigration story, the children of immigrant story, and the parents own a nail salon, and it's all about, they have a salon in Toronto, another salon, a big corporate salon is opening up down the street. There's competition between them. How are they dealing with the gentrification of the neighborhood? And this was actually a really fun read for me, not only because it's just nice to read a story about a different perspective and everything, but it takes place in Toronto. She's a Canadian writer, which I love to support. Takes place in Toronto, and it actually takes place in a neighborhood that I lived for about a year. So it was really fun just kind of reading it and being like, oh my god, like I actually know what this book is talking about, like where it takes place and all of that. So that was just really fun for me to read, and it also takes place in 2016, which is when I was living in Toronto. So it just, hair here. It was just a really fun read for me for that, and the characters were really great. It got really dark in the middle of the story, which was unexpected, but really fun to just kind of come out of nowhere. So there's a lot of that competition, familial relationships, and the whole book is basically just how this family is growing and developing with this hardship, and I just thought it was really well done, and it wrapped up really nicely, so I gave that book a 4-star. The next book that I read was another audiobook, so I believe this is my 3rd audiobook of the year, and it was Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. I gave this a 4-star. Super, super cute, especially the audiobook. You have 2 narrators, and because it's a dual perspective story, it was really nice just having those 2 narrators. They're really fun. They put a really nice spin on the story, just the humor that they brought to the characters, and the emotion and everything. So I really enjoyed that. The story itself was super cute. It's like an Arthurian kind of tale, except Arthur, I believe it's been 100 years since Arthur died. So it's like the descendants and kind of like future England and what has happened since Arthur has died and just all of that. So that was really fun to kind of read that take. It's an LGBTQ plus story, so you have two main characters that are both queer, and you know, just the kind of development, self-discovery, sexual discovery, or not really discovery, but awakening, I guess, realizations. So it was a really sweet book and I really loved reading it, honestly. The next book was part of my library books about librarians vlog. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's my last video. So check that out if you're interested. And that is Murder by the Book by Lauren Elliott. I gave this book a 3.5 star. I would have given it a 4 star, but I got so much whiplash reading this book. The pace and the characters just went through everything so quickly that I was like reading it and I was like, excuse me, what? And it was just really hard, not to understand, but it really jarred me and brought me out of the story quite frequently. So I didn't really like that aspect. I did like the aspect of you have a librarian leaving a big town job, going to a small town, opening up the bookstore, because I feel like that's the dream for a lot of people, not just librarians, but a lot of people. It's kind of like that dream, opening up a little bookstore. And so that was really sweet, and the mystery was cool. There is a little bit of a romance, so that's really interesting. But yeah, I thought it was really cute, and it kind of ties in a problem that she had already been experiencing. So it's not just like an issue in that town, it's something that started elsewhere and then just kind of wraps up in the town, if that makes sense. Anyway, super cute, cozy mystery. If that's what you're interested in, I would recommend it. But yeah, the pacing was just threw me off way too much. The next book that I read, I actually did a lot of audiobooks in March, I will say, because I found out that my library has the 1986 or something like that, the BBC 1981 BBC radio drama adaptation of The Lord of the Rings. And I don't know if well, I know you can see because I can see it. This here is the cassette set of the 1981 Lord of the Rings BBC drama adaptation, where you have Ian Holm as Bilbo. So I saw that and I was like, oh my god, like I have to just read it. April, spring is kind of like the time that I enjoy reading Lord of the Rings the most and marathoning the movies and everything, because in high school, I was 15 when I started reading Lord of the Rings, and I read them every year. And so what I would start to do is after exams, I would read the book and I would marathon the movies, and that was like my treat to myself for completing my exams. I did that in high school, which would have been like June would have been my exams, but then in university, I did the same thing, so April, and it just became kind of like a spring thing for me. So when I found them, I had to listen to them, of course. I gave them all 5 stars, so I'm not really going to go too into them, but it's not the book. So this isn't an audiobook. This is literally a radio adaptation. So it's been dramatized for the radio. And there's music, there's sound effects, they do voices. It's a fully like casted, I don't know what you want to call it, story, I guess. Like every character is its own actor. A lot of them are really well known. Bill Nighy plays Samwise. So yeah, so I really enjoyed those. I've only started Fellowship of the Ring and The Hobbit, and the Hobbit one was a 1968 or 60s adaptation. And yeah, that was another really good one. So I'm just gonna cover those really quickly because I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not quite an audiobook, but it's really fun. And I wanted to, like, we have a cassette player at home, but I wasn't 100% sure how those cassettes were going to play. So I wanted to listen to it just to see what it's about. And I really enjoyed it. And if you really like Lord of the Rings or Tolkien, I would highly suggest it as well because they're really fun to listen to. The next book that I read was The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman, and this was a really fun read. It's a fantasy, but also has a little bit of an element of sci-fi because you have a multi-universe world. There's a library that exists in between, I don't know what you want to call it, in between worlds, I suppose. That's linked to all of these different universes, and these librarians, capital L, work at this library, and they collect books from all over the different universes, all over the different worlds, all the different time periods, and they bring them back for this library to preserve them. And it's not like they'll keep them, like, if it's a book that's like super important to that world, they will make copies for that universe, but they'll keep the original copy at the library. So it was really fun. The magic system is really cool. The characters were really nicely fleshed out. There's a nice mystery going on. And yeah, I was really interested in the story. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm going to finish the series, I think. I have the second book. It's waiting for me. So I'm hoping to be able to finish the series because it just sounds really fun. So I think I'm going to really enjoy it. And if you like that kind of book, I would recommend it for you as well. The last book that I read for March was A Murder for the Books by Victoria Gilbert. And this was also for my Library Books by Librarians, about librarians video, and this was fun because it was a cozy mystery written by a librarian. So I highly recommend this book if you want more of a inside look at how librarians kind of work and different things that we're taught and different ways that we do our job. I think she did a really great job at using that because she talks about the going from an academic library to a public library and also using those skills that she has from working as a librarian to helping to solve a murder. So that's really fun if that's what you're interested in. Definitely give it a read, and I'll likely continue with the series because it is a really fun book and I really enjoyed it. The book that I am reading now is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I'm almost done it. I'll probably finish it tomorrow, so that'll be my first book for April. But yeah, now that I have finished talking about what I read, let's look at some of the stats, shall we? Okay, so I'll probably like screenshot it and put it up here or something like that, but looking at the moods for the books, so in total I've read 15 books for this first quarter, approximately 5,400 pages. It's not totally accurate because some of the books I don't have as audiobooks in Storygraph, so it's counting pages when there's books that should be in minutes, if that makes sense. So anyway, so you can see, because I will input it, lighthearted, adventurous, and emotional were the 3 largest moods of books that I read, and I think that's pretty easily seen, all of the lighthearted books. We've got mysterious is the next largest piece of the pie, and funny, as well as hopeful, relaxing, and then dark are tied. So not quite darker books, but definitely I started 2024 in with like a lighter kind of mood and just kind of getting into things. So I think that's pretty fair. That's kind of the books that I've been looking into and wanting to read. So I think that's a pretty fair representation. For pace, I'll also put that up here. So for pace, you can see that the pace of the books that I was reading was mostly medium. And then we have fast and slow for the next two. So, and I think that's also pretty fair. The books that I was picking up were tending to go that way, much quicker reads, faster paces, things were happening. So yeah, I'm not going to cover page number just because, like I said, I know those numbers are skewed a little bit just because of the audiobooks that I was reading. So I'm not going to go over those. The fiction versus nonfiction, they were all fiction. Maybe that'll change. I do want to get into my King Arthur book, but I guess that's still fiction. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll include some nonfiction eventually this year, but for right now, I'm pretty happy with reading fiction exclusively. I don't have a problem with that. For genres, I don't know how I want to add this in. I don't know if I'm going to add another page in so you can view it, but anyway, I do want to cover genres because I feel like this year I'm doing much more diverse genre reading than I do typically, and I'm happy with that, and I know I can expand further, but I think this is a really nice start in that direction. So I have 6 romances, 6 fantasy, 5 historical, 3 mystery, 2 classics, 2 LGBTQ, and then we've got a magical realism, YA, literary, and contemporary. And some of these genres do like crossover with each other, so they're obviously not exclusive. But yeah, it's just nice to see for myself a nice variety, because that's just what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to like vary my reading a little bit, get back into reading. So I think it's good. I'm not going to look over format because, like I said, the audio doesn't make sense, and even the digital majority of these books were library borrows, and majority of those library borrows were ebooks to my Kobo, my e-reader. I only took a few out that were physical from the library, so these are definitely skewed, those stats for sure. Most read authors, it's like 2 of Evie Dunmore, 2 of Olivia Atwell, and 2 of Tolkien, so not a huge amount of anyone really. All the books were in English. That's my first language, so of course that's what I consume the most. And I think this graph is really fun. So it shows the number of books and the number of pages. So like I said, pages is a little bit, but I think it's just fun to see how the books are progressing. You can see January I did 5, February was 3, March is, oh god, I think that's 8 or something. I don't know. 7. My math isn't up, okay? It's a holiday today, so the brain is still on holiday. So 7 in March, and then my pages read in January 1912, 1276 in February, and then 2223 in March. So I think this will be interesting just to see as the year goes on how that goes. And then star ratings. I have mostly 4 stars that I've given out, a few 5, some 2, which is interesting because a fairly, I feel like I pick out books that I tend to like, and if I don't love them, they tend to be 3 stars. So it's kind of nice to see, not really nice, but like it's nice to see that some of the books that I'm reading, I am able to give a little bit of a varied rating system, review system. So it's not just all like 3, 4, 5, or like majority 4s or majority 5s or anything like that. I'm pretty happy with that. So it's just kind of fun to see. Clearly, I'm liking most of the books that I'm reading, but there are some books that are disappointments, of course. And that's all the Storygraph stats. So if you guys are interested in following me on Storygraph, my username and everything is down below. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. Like I said, after I read most books, I do put a little bit of a review, especially if it's a book that I'm reading for the first time. I'm not going to review any of my rereads just because obviously I like it if I'm rereading it. So I don't need to do a review, but for any of the new books, I will be posting reviews and how I am enjoying it, what are my thoughts on it. So yeah, if you like this video, remember, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know in the comments down below how many books you've read this month. Are you doing a reading challenge? Maybe. Some of you are, some of you aren't. Or if there's a challenge that you're giving yourself. Is there a genre that you're trying to read more of? Is there a style of book that you're trying to read more of? I think that would be really fun to see. But yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!